like we need to like go over beforehand, right? It's kind of just like a free for all.
It's a free for all.
All right, cool.
It's a free for all. Okay, so we are live with Comic Books NYC. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that you live in New York City.
You would be guessing correctly. I live in Brooklyn, which is one of the boroughs of New York City. I work in Manhattan also. So
that's cool. Yeah, I've been to New York City once as a tourist. So
yeah,
I mean, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know where Brooklyn is in relation to Manhattan, but yeah, it's so cool. I've always wanted to go to Midtown.
Brooklyn is located east of Manhattan, across the East River. Basically, there are two rivers surrounding the island of Manhattan. Gotcha. One is the Hudson River, which separates New Jersey from Manhattan, and then the other is the East River, which separates Queens and Brooklyn from Manhattan. So that's kind of the layout of how the city works. It's Manhattan is in between two rivers, and then the other boroughs of New York City are either to the east or the north. There's also the Bronx, which is located above Manhattan. But you know, technically, Manhattan is a complete island unto itself. It's surrounded by water on all sides.
we all know Rumble in the Bronx. That's
yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and shout out the chat real quick. We got Bake the Snake.
Yo,
cool
what's
dude.
up, baby?
Awesome guy. Comics on the Mind. What's going on, bro? Perry. What is up? Perry Comics up in the house. No fitted cap today.
No, man. Well, I mean, I thought about doing, because I usually wear a fitted cap, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to put on my Marvel beanie today.
I normally wear a cap, but I guess I'm not doing that today. Not Perry. Dan Piercy's Comics said he's been to downtown Midtown Comics before. Fun store. That's something I got to check out. I've never done.
Yeah, it's a fun store. I tend to go to the downtown one more because it's just more convenient for me. It's on the way. It's like on the way to work, and it's on the way home from work. Nice. On my way back out to Brooklyn, so it's kind of perfectly located there for me in downtown. And they also do a lot of the signings in the downtown one. Actually,
that's cool. Yeah. So is Midtown Comics? I mean, we as collectors, we see Midtown Comics all over the place. Is that what you would consider your LCS? Is that the one that you frequent?
Midtown Comics downtown, specifically at 64 Fulton Street, is my LCS. But I go to plenty of shops out here in Brooklyn. I go to plenty of other shops in Manhattan. I don't really stray into like New Jersey or like the outskirts of the city too often to go comic book hunting. But there are like within the 5 boroughs, there's like upwards of 30 comic shops or something like that. So there's a lot of comics in the city, and then of course you've got you've got shows like the Big Apple Comic Con, you've got New York Comic Con, you've got some regional shows and stuff like in Long Island and whatnot. So there's a lot of opportunities to either hunt for comics or meet comic creators or hang out with other comic book fans also in this area. Which is
Samuel David in the chat. What's up, dude? Tim the Comic Collector. Yo. What's going on?
Yeah, I'd love to go to visit Mile High Comics.
Yeah, he said he's been to Mile High. That's another one on my list of pilgrimages.
Yeah,
I wanted to go to. That'd be a lot of fun. But I mean, I'm not terribly far from. I'm like 3 hours outside of New York City on the train. I'm in central Pennsylvania.
Got it. Cool.
So from where I am to
I grew up in Jersey. I grew up in the Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore guy, right?
Yeah. Well, not a stereotypical Jersey Shore guy, but yeah.
Very cool.
That's where I grew up.
So go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about any social media you've got going on.
Yeah, sure. So my channel name is Comic Books NYC, just like it's right up there. I'm on Instagram basically, I'm on all the social media platforms with the same handle, essentially. YouTube.com/comicbooksnyc, Instagram.com, comicbooksnyc, Twitter at comicbooksnyc, even Facebook I think I have, which I don't really do much on there, but I kind of just, I'll like reshare posts I'm doing on Instagram, on Facebook, and things like that. But those are like the main platforms that I'm on. I think I've been on Instagram for like, I don't know, 18 plus months or so with Comic Books NYC. And then I've been on YouTube since, like I've had my own channel with videos on YouTube since October of 2018. So like a year and a few months plus-ish, like that, something like that. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, Stay Puff in the house. What's going on?
So I don't make a ton of content on my YouTube channel, but I try every
Well, recently I noticed you went to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I did actually recently go to Las Vegas.
I was watching your postings on Instagram. If anybody hasn't seen it, check out its Instagram. Lots of cool stuff on there.
Thanks, appreciate that. For
your trip to Las Vegas. So you've seen a whole lot of cool stuff out there in Sin City. But
yeah, that was a fun trip. I
saw you went to Torpedo Comics.
I did get the chance to go to Torpedo. That was fun. I mean, I didn't buy anything of significance there because everything was very much overpriced.
Just being at Torpedo is worth it.
But being there, hanging out there, that was pretty cool. I got to go there with another member of the community, RB3, Ray. He kind of showed me around town, took me to a few of the Vegas shops, Torpedo included. He introduced me to, the owner and everything. So that was cool. It was a good,
so you got to meet.
Cool trip. Okay. Yeah. It was fun. It was a cool trip.
Awesome. That's like a highlight of the trip. That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even there for comics. I mean, I was in Vegas to see Jerry Seinfeld do stand up live with my brother. That was the whole point. That was the whole point of the trip. It was like being there, going to see Jerry do stand up, which was hilarious, which was so cool. It was fun. But I was able to sneak in a bunch of comic book related stuff prior to my brother getting into town, so that was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. How's Jerry Seinfeld anyway?
Oh, he's hilarious. I mean, that was my second time seeing him live in Vegas at the same venue at Caesar's Palace. So I was kind of doing it to like treat my brother because he had never seen it. We both grew up watching Seinfeld, the sitcom, like nonstop in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. So
that's awesome. That is going on. Barbarian Kung Fu, what is up?
What's up, Barbarian? I'm going to be seeing Barbarian at C2E2.
C2E2. So, that's a convention I would love to get the chance to go to. But
it'd be great.
Not a huge fan of Chicago. Being a Minnesota.
I love Chicago. I mean, I was in Chicago in April, but of last year. But I believe C2E2 is like end of February.
Yeah, it's coming up. I do know it's coming up.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun. Anybody you're interested in seeing at C2E2, creator-wise?
I haven't done really a deep dive of like who's going to be in Artist Alley. I think a lot of the artists have yet to be announced. I'm sure they'll be announcing more soon because it's a little under 2 months away here. Yeah. But I took a quick look at the C2E2 website the other day with. I believe JP Budget Collecting and I were live on some show or whatever, so we looked at it in real time, and there wasn't a ton listed on the website just yet as far as like artists and whatnot. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure as it approaches, I will be doing more planning, I guess.
Yeah, that's C2E2 is up there with one of the ones I definitely got to check out. Before.
Yeah, I've never been.
I've been
to Chicago, and I've been to that convention center for other events, but have not actually been to C2E2. So
now, have you been to like? Obviously, you live in New York City, so the question has to be asked: Have you been to the bigger conventions in New York at all?
Yeah, I'm at New York Comic Con pretty much every year. I'm at Big Apple Comic Con. Big Apple Comic Con is a smaller show, but I'm pretty much there every year. They also have the Christmas show version of that, which is only a one-day thing. So I was there this year. I was at both of their events this year, and I was at New York Comic Con last several years. So yeah, I make it a point to hit up the the bigger cons and the bigger comic related events around here as much as I can swing it. So
now, which one in your opinion is better, New York Comic Con or Big Apple Comic Con?
New York Comic Con. I mean,
Your Comic Con's better.
Yeah, I mean, Big Apple Comic Con is cool. Like, it's a 2-day, lower key, like in a hotel mezzanine kind of show. It's not like the giant convention center style. You know, Javits Center is like a huge convention center. You know, like hundreds of thousands of people go to New York Comic Con over the 4 days, right? Big Apple Comic Con is more of a low key event in comparison to that. You'll run into a lot of the same, you know. A lot of the dealers will set up at both, but you know, New York Comic Con will have upwards of 40, 50, you know, comic book dealers and hundreds of artists in an artist alley that's, you know, in a base that's basically below ground that's dedicated purely to artist alley for the most part. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome. It's massive.
Love that.
Yeah, New York Comic Con's hard to top in my opinion. It's my favorite event of the year to go to.
Really? That's your Super Bowl every year.
That's my Super Bowl, yeah.
That's awesome. I've been going to Baltimore Comic Con the last couple of years.
Yeah. See, the problem with Baltimore for me is that it's just so close to New York Comic Con. Like, it's either historically it's either been right before or right after, and you know, I end up spending a lot of money in New York Comic Con. So it's like, what am I gonna, you know, I basically deplete my fall con like budget, you know, at New York Comic Con. So I can only really realistically do one or the other.
Yeah. And
I really like, just skip my hometown show. It's kind of weird.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's so much easier to just, you know, stay in New York and go to the shows. But what I enjoy about especially Baltimore is since Baltimore, and I think Baltimore and New York Comic Con are run by the same crew.
Reed Pop is not in charge of Baltimore Comic Con.
Oh, okay.
Reed Pop does C2E2. They also do New York Comic Con, but they don't do Baltimore, is my understanding. I'm not sure who does Baltimore. I think it's more of a localized.
See, I don't know because they get the same exclusives, like the convention exclusives. Last couple of years,
I don't necessarily think that's a function of I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a function of the company that's.
I don't know where that comes from or how they get those convention exclusives, but it's been kind of nice, you know, not having to go to New York Comic Con and spend big bucks.
Right. Reed Pop, I know for a fact, does New York Comic Con, C2E2, Star Wars Celebration.
Okay.
And these are all events that I've been to. I believe they also do Emerald City Comic Con, Florida SuperCon, Keystone Comic Con in Philly, which I've also been to, and a few others. But
Keystone's fun. Keystone's like 45 minutes for me. I haven't been, but I've heard great things about it. And it's only like 3 years old. And every year they've gotten progressively better with talent.
Yeah, I went the first year when it was kind of empty, you know, which was kind of nice for me in a way, because I mean there were several reasons why that was nice for me at the time, but I heard that it grew quite a bit last year and that the event got better. I didn't go last year.
I should have went last year. They had John Carpenter.
Yeah,
I wanted to check out John Carpenter. That would have been a lot of fun. Just making sure I'm paying attention to the chat. Okay, it looks like we got everybody. But okay, so let's dive deep into your collection. Question number one: what is your favorite book in your collection?
Question number one: what is my favorite book in my collection? I mean, that's hard, dude. I mean, I think I saw that question on the list, you know, that you sent me yesterday or whatever the day was, and I was like, well, that's going to be the question that it's going to basically impossible for me to answer. I mean, but you know, if I had to choose a book, it would probably be Amazing Fantasy 15 because.
And you have that like a book. You have that book.
I do have that book. Yeah, okay. I mean, I have that book, and I also like make a point to collect like almost every reprint version of it, and you know what have you. You know, like it's part of my collecting set essentially is to have that book in my collection and try to get all the reprints and facsimiles and what have you of that book. Spider-Man's my favorite comic book specific character, my favorite Marvel character. So that's, I guess, an easy out on that. Although, you know, when I look at other individual books in my collection, like I could easily just say that this is my favorite book. But it's hard, I don't know. It's hard to say what my favorite comic book is, but based on my collection and the things I'm into, that's an easy one for me to just sort of say.
AF-15. Yeah, it's you don't see that book floating around a whole lot.
Well, you do. I mean, that's the thing.
Is there a story behind that? Like, how did you come across it? Is it you just saw it at a shop and you bought it, or?
No, I mean, I'm not going to share the entire story behind that. I mean,
sure.
I mean, you bring up Keystone Comic Con, like that's how I came across a copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, which eventually I did buy. But there are other times where I've had that book. I've had that book in my collection. I've had that book out of my collection. I've had multiple copies of it. So it's a book that it's not, it's a book that I'm eventually, like, my ultimate end goal is to have like a higher grade, not a high grade, not like an 8.0, 9.0 range, but like maybe like a 4 to 5.0 range copy of that
still
book.
Still a good grade. That's solid grade.
But I've only ever had like lower grade copies, I guess, of that book. So eventually I'd like to have a higher grade copy of that book. I'm in no rush though,
Right.
I'm not trying to like rush to sell my whole collection to get one high grade copy of AF-15 because a high grade copy costs that much,
Yeah, they're definitely not cheap. Definitely not cheap.
Barbarians like go for the
9.8. Yeah, go for the 9.8. You'll have to sell all your books, one of your kidneys,
Yes. Drugs on the street. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It doesn't look good. So how do you store all your books? Is it long boxes? Is it short boxes? I see a whole bunch of cabinet space behind you.
Yeah, I basically store my books based in how most collectors store my books or their books. I've got various types of short boxes depending upon what we're talking about. Like for graded slab books, I have the BCW plastic bins or whatever, the grade bins. I've got like 4 or 5 of those. So that's how I store my graded comics. I also have the BCW graded plastic bins that are like for regular comic books, not for slabs, So I think I have like 8 of those for just raw books. A lot of those are like, newer books that I've collected in the last 2 to 3 years. And then I also have just straight up regular short boxes, the old school BCW, like nothing fancy.
Can't go wrong with regular short boxes.
Whole bunch of those. I got like one magazine size short box that I put like these prestige format books and magazine size books and some raw Golden Age books and stuff like that in there, because they don't actually make a Golden Age size for short boxes, which I find frustrating, because that means if you do happen to have raw Golden Age comic books, your only solution really is to get a magazine size and like have some extra room on the left and right of the book. At least unless you know of a solution, but
no, me and Golden Age books, I don't have a whole lot of Golden Age, man. I don't have that problem.
Right, and that's something, that's an area of collecting which I've gotten more and more into the last few years. Just like I've gotten into original art the last few years. So like my collecting has sort of gone through various phases of transitions. To Dan Piercy's comments, he sees bookshelves. I do have like, a lot of trade paperbacks and some omnibus, and I do like, if I don't have enough room in some boxes, like there are like some of these little cubes that have like slabs, you know what I mean? Like I got all my signed books in one of these cubes. I've got all my sketch covers up here in one of these little cubes that you can't even see on the camera right now. But, I will, this is like both a bookshelf and like a workspace almost, like where like I'll put some stuff into a cube temporarily and then I'll figure out where it actually needs to go, whatnot. And it's kind of like a little triage area for my comic collecting between this desk that I'm sitting at right here, and this bookshelf and this, see that back there, see that like other like kind of drawer back there.
Yeah.
So I got stuff sitting on there. I got some books,
What are they
on the
got some nice
wall,
books up there?
mountain on the wall. I got those are some black suit Spidey keys, so nothing major. I'm just kind of,
Still cool, man.
I'll rotate those in and out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be something. And then another week it'll be another thing. So, so that's kind of that's how I lay out and store and all that.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome, man. You should do like a room tour some of these days.
Yeah, I plan. I mean, I've never done a room tour, but I plan on doing one. I will do one. I want to make it an edited video though, so everything can be like, so everything can look good. Be concise, not be a 90-minute video that nobody watches on replay kind of thing. I'd love to do like a 10-minute, like nice and produced,
nice produced and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, produced is a stretch because I don't edit a ton video wise, but yeah, I would like to do that. I kind of gave a little bit of a tease. I went on the No Faces chat a few weeks ago before Christmas, like I think on the 23rd. And I was having technical difficulties, like I couldn't hear anybody and whatnot. And it's a No Faces chat, so if you can't hear anybody, what the hell is the point? You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
So like, why in between, me getting the audio working and not working, I would just walk around with my phone and I would show like the walls and whatnot, just to make it like salvageable. But I will put out a edited room tour piece at some point. It's not. I mean, there's nothing crazy going on here. It's just
still cool, man.
Stuff. Just cool stuff on the walls. Mostly
that's
original
what we want
art.
to see.
Yeah, mostly original art and stuff, and then
especially if you got original art.
What you see behind me is the bulk of the comic room, anyway. But I do have some other walls in this area of my place that has comic related stuff on it. So.
Very awesome, man. Very awesome. What are some of the coolest keys in your collection?
Oh man, coolest keys. Well, do you want to see some books? I mean, or do you want me to just talk
whatever you want to do, man? This is all about you. You want to show us some cool books? You don't have to.
I mean,
but let me give some shout outs while you're doing that. Dan Piercy loves his bookshelves and always making fun of my file cabinets and gun safes.
Well, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, but this is a pretty cool key comic book.
Yeah, let me zoom in on that a little bit. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So
AF-15. So what do you got? A 0.5?
0.5 and a 2.5.
2.5.
So this is my current setup of what I have for this book. Like I said, I'm always kind of looking to sort of possibly trade up eventually for that book.
So if you put them together, is that a solid 3?
I mean, I would hope so, right? No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, right.
But I also, before I ever owned that book, I owned page 1, and I got that slabbed. So this is the first page.
I didn't know you could slab a single page.
Yeah, you can slab a single page. It still says
Very
Amazing Fantasy 15 on it, but it says, first page only. Still has the keynotes on it. And as you can see, that's the first appearance of Peter Parker in the story, right? On the cover, he is Spider-Man, right? So that's technically Peter Parker's first appearance right there. So I don't know if I will ever try to trade up on that one because that one's more like sentimental. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would imagine like if people who are going to grade a certain page, there has to be like a specific market for it.
Yeah. And the market for it was diehard Spider-Man fan that didn't have the money at the time for Amazing Fantasy 15, but eventually did have the money for it. You know what I mean? So
I mean, and I'm sure CGC wouldn't bother slabbing us, one page if there wasn't a market for it. They just wouldn't do it. But
for like these huge big key books like Batman 1, Superman 1, Action 1, Tech 27. You can even throw in AF-15 and some of the Silver Age Marvel, FF1 type books, where there is a market. People will buy a page because for some people that's the most that they would ever be able to like realistically get. So there definitely is a market for it, I would say.
Very cool. That's awesome.
But as far as other cool keys and whatnot, I don't have every Marvel Silver Age key or whatnot, but those are those are the books I find to be, I guess, cool. Like some of the cooler books. I'm almost these are the characters I'm into are like Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, TMNT, and Star Wars. Like those are my favorite, I guess, character universes within comics and pop culture. So a lot of my cooler quote unquote keys to me are the bigger key books from that I have. Like I don't have every single one, but from those universes, I guess.
Very cool. Yeah, Ninja Turtles were always cool in my book.
Yeah, I mean, TMNT #1 first print is the only book on my goal list for 2020. I don't have like a formal goal list, anything like that. That's the only book I'm really going after, and that's it's a big book, so I'm gonna have to sell a couple books probably to.
Yeah, that's a big boy book.
Yeah, that's a big boy book. I'm gonna have to sell a couple books. I'm gonna have to bring some books for possible trade bait and trade value to C2E2 potentially if that's when you do find one, you're gonna
try to find one that's graded or raw.
Graded. I mean, it's such a. I would say that's one of the riskier books to deal with on a raw level, just because it was. I mean, these guys basically made the comic book themselves. You know what I mean?
That's
in
true.
1984, and they put it out, and there was less than 3,000 of them. So I could. I mean, I would have to bring in somebody that has even more experience than me, possibly with like identifying that book, if I were to even consider a deal for a raw copy of it. So I don't know. I'm not sure about a raw copy of that one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. I've heard some horror stories about that. Yeah. I would definitely do my research when I'm going to buy a book like that for sure.
Yeah.
So is it safe to assume that the next question would be what does your collection mostly consist of? Is it DC? Is it Marvel?
All right, well, so I'll show some examples now, I guess,
sure.
Just to like. So I collect a lot of Star Wars related stuff. So these are 2 copies of Star Wars #1 right here. This is my
pretty good grades too.
Yeah, this is a 9.2 of the regular copy, 9.2 white pages, which I upgraded to this year. I actually gave my under copy away as an AOK to Bake the Snake, who's in the chat. This is a copy of the book. It's a 1.8, but this is a 35-cent price variant. So it is one of the so this is one of the rarest Bronze Age comic book like holy grails that exists. It's a super rare 35-cent price variant version of Star Wars #1. So I'm totally cool with that 1.8. But I was able to get a 9.2, upgrade to a 9.2 of the original copy at the 30-cent price point. Eventually, I'd love to upgrade this to a 9.8, but I'm in no rush. So Star Wars. There's a bunch of Star Wars in my collection. I would say between the original Marvel stuff, some of the Dark Horse and indie stuff, and a lot of the new Marvel stuff. The 2015 and on stuff. I kind of collect. I've got a bunch of books from the Star Wars world throughout my collection. Another thing I collect, trying to find examples of books that apply here, is X-Men related stuff. So giant size X-Men #1.
Wow.
I'm showing you everything I have 2 copies of right now, I guess. But
that's awesome.
giant size X-Men #1. Of course, Hulk 180. You got Wolverine.
Hulk 180.
This is a character I'm a big fan of. 181, 70.
That's a good
182. 92. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to larger sort of universes with multiple characters, I love Star Wars. I love the X-Men and the wider group of characters. I also really love Spider-Man, which I already showed some examples. But when I say Spider-Man, I also mean Venom and Carnage. Like these books mean a lot to me. The whole Eddie Brock, I guess, set of books. 298, 299, 301, 315, 316, and of course 300. Right. So
yeah.
So these books, Venom and Carnage, Absolute Carnage, like just the whole world of Spider-Man, Venom, Carnage. Definitely is quite prominent in my collection. TMNT, like I'm trying to make strides there. I don't have like the majority of the original Eastman and Laird run I do not have. I maybe have like 25% of it, but that's definitely a collecting goal of mine. And probably the other thing that I'm missing is, or the other thing that I haven't mentioned is like Batman, DC superhero, Golden Age stuff, especially. I'm super into. For example, this is Batman number 16. This is the first appearance of Alfred.
Oh, cool! Very
Batman
cool.
Yep, Batman number 16, the first appearance of Alfred, and then this was also another big pickup for me this year. Batman number 20. This is the first Batmobile cover.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So when it comes to DC, I'm definitely kind of more into Golden Age, I would say, as far as like tracking down single issues and stuff. But storylines, I'm all over the place. Like I like some Bronze Age stuff. I like Frank Miller. I like, Scott Snyder. Like I like a lot of the modern stuff. Like I'm all over the place as far as like storylines and stuff that I'm into. But when it comes to like collecting bigger books and slabs and stuff, those are kind of like, I guess, I look at it like I look at those kind of books a little bit more like investments, I guess. Even though like I love the stories and whatnot, I have other ways to read the stories. So I lean more towards slabs, I guess, for key issues, if that makes any sense. But I have way more raw comic books than I have slabs in my collection. I know that was also a question that you had on the list, I think, something like that. Some sort of question around raw versus slab.
Yeah, just how many total books? I guess, yeah. How many total books do you have?
I don't know, because I don't actually catalog every single book. I do catalog all the slabs, and I do catalog like anything related to artwork, whether it's a sketch cover or original art and stuff like that. But I don't actually I haven't actually cataloged every single raw comic book in my collection. I have somewhere between 14 and 16 short boxes of raw comic books. So you can kind of do the math. Like,
yeah, that's quite the collection.
It's hard, like, because some of those short boxes are full, some of those short boxes are not. Some short boxes, like for example, I have a short box that's literally just comic books that I haven't sorted yet, and then I have another short box that's literally like new comic books that I haven't gotten around to reading yet. But that's only like a quarter of the way full, right? So it's hard to like guess an exact number, but I would say probably somewhere in the like 1,500 or so range total would probably be accurate.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you have a specific book or a few books that have a lot of sentimental value? I know you brought up the single page Spider-Man #1.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, that has some sentimental value. Just as like a collecting goal or whatever, to have that single page of AF-15, and then having that actual copy of AF-15 in my collection in general is like a huge. But I would say that's more of like I'm proud of that as a collector versus sentimental.
Sure.
The Eddie Brock Venom run on ASM, the McFarlane Venom, stuff is a little bit sentimental because those are some of the first comic books I ever had when I was a kid, and then I lost those books, and then I had to basically re-get those books as an adult down the line. So those are a little sentimental. This book is very sentimental to me. It's like there's really nothing special about it.
Still cool looking.
It's a 90s, from 1994. It's a 90s Spider-Man book, issue number 94. Signed by Stan Lee. I sent it to CBCS for signature verification. All that came back in 85. And the reason why I would say that this is a very sentimental book to me is that. So I'll backtrack.
Sure.
I'll backtrack even further than that. So it was the year was 2014, and I went to San Diego Comic Con. Down San Diego.
Man, you've been everywhere, man. I'm really jealous.
Well, just wait. So I had been out of comic books for quite a while. You know what I mean? Like I really had no interest in comic books outside of the movies at the time, right? So this is like summer 2014. I was down in San Diego for work reasons. And as a result of what I was down there for work-wise, I got hooked up with free badge for San Diego Comic Con, which was happening.
That's pretty cool. Weekend.
So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go take a trip over to the con, right? And I don't remember which day of the con it was or even what was happening, but like my interest in comic books at the time was basically, you know, more so about the movies. You know, when I was a kid, it was about the animated shows, X-Men the animated series, Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series. You know, these are all TMNT, the cartoon, like, you know, all of those 90s cartoons for these comic book properties were like part of me growing up, and sort of my first major exposure to these characters and you know, what comic books work, you know, are, what, you know, how they essentially, you know, brought us these amazing cartoons that I was enjoying as a kid, like, you know, because without those comics, these cartoons wouldn't exist, right? So, but I had long since moved past like caring about physical copies of comic books and things like that, because I never got that into that as a kid. I wasn't like a hoarder of comic books as a kid. That only started later on in adulthood. So 2014, I was at San Diego Comic Con because I was there for work, and I really had no idea that I would like start getting into a hobby again or anything like that. But it just happened. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I think my assumption of what San Diego Comic Con was at the time was mainly driven on by the media and like, you know, movie announcements and things like that. But I got to actually like scour the show floor and like start, you know, I don't know, it piqued my interest a little bit again after all these years. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about late 90s or so was like the last time I cared about anything comic book related. Hey, what's up, Bueller? And so the reason why I mentioned that is that that's when I got back into comic books. You know what I mean? I started reading trades again. I started looking at books. I was like, oh, you know what? This is cool. This is fun. And then I moved, and I was living in LA, right? So San Diego was easy to get to, whatnot at the time. So that was the first like comic book related thing that I had done in a long time. I started dipping my feet again. And then I moved to New York also for work reasons in 2015. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm originally from New York, New Jersey area, so it was kind of like going home. But bringing that newfound like, you know, hobby with me kind of was like a friend to help me on this journey of like adjusting to the East Coast again and like having new circumstances for work, and just there was a lot of changes in my life going on at the time. So fast forward to the summer of, I think, 2017, maybe 2018. Honestly, I off the top of my head, a lot of this stuff like is blurring together in my head, honestly, as I talk about it in real time. But I went to Amazing Comic Con Las Vegas, and this book was essentially just, you know, it was a free book. It wasn't a free book. It's a book I won essentially, right? In a mystery box at that con. But the reason why it has sentimental value to me is that at that con I was able to spend time with somebody that was influential to me, that I also started like developing a friendship with and whatnot. And unfortunately, a couple weeks later, that person passed away. So that's why this is, to me, is like the most sentimental comic book that I have, because it reminds me of that. It really has no value to me besides that. You know what I mean? Like I have no clue what this book is worth. Probably not worth a lot. It's probably just worth the Stanley signature that's on it. You know what I mean? Which, you know, $30, $40, I don't know. But it means the world. But to me, it just reminds me of that, you know, of that time and whatnot. So, So that's why it's pretty sentimental. But I also have books that I've gotten from members of the community. Like D. Runk just showed up. He AOK'd me this book. Yeah, he AOK'd me this book, 9.8, New 52, Batman.
I just learned what AOK meant. This whole time, I had no idea what an AOK was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then finally was
if you don't know, they don't make it really easy or obvious what it is.
I was like, yeah, that sure is an AOK book. Like, yeah, sure.
Oh, sure is AOK.
Like, I thought it was some inside joke. I was like way on the outside for.
But I
figured it out.
Yeah, so there's been books given to me by members of the community. This is just one example of that.
That's really cool. That's a good book.
Yeah, that's a great book, and it's personalized and everything. It says to my first name, signed by, by Snyder and Capullo, so double signed.
Where was that signed? I know CBCS used to put them on. They don't anymore.
I believe it was signed at was PlanetCon or George would know. I think he's in the chat. I mean, that was my assumption that it was at that con. It was or GalaxyCon possibly. I believe, GalaxyCon. There you go.
Oh, there it is, GalaxyCon.
Yeah. So there's an example, and I mean, here's another example of a book that I got signed at a con that's sentimental, but really has no monetary value. It's the True Believers. True Believers version of the Infinity Gauntlet, signed by Jim Starlin. So Jim Starlin, I ran into him.
Cool. That is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's a 6.5 of like a $1 True Believers book, but it's signed by Jim Starlin. It's signed by Jim Starlin, and I got to talk to him and had him sign it in front of me. I did not get this cleaned or pressed or whatever. I just got it slabbed. And at the time, he was not doing anything with CGC. He was in a beef, essentially, with CGC. He would not allow a CGC representative at his booth, right, or at his table. So I just had a conversation with him and had him sign this in front of me, no witness from either company or whatever. And I sent it in later after the fact, and I know he signed it. So and they did confirm that he signed it. But,
there's no problem with this CBCS Red Label. I
have no issues with
I love the VSP program that they offer, and I think it's
speaking of CBCS Red Label, and George will get a kick out of this, be showing this book because he beat me on a comic book competition show with a Batman 181 when this was the book I was going up against him with, and this was in a contest for Burke Family. But anyway, this is a CBCS Red Label of Journey into Mystery 83, signed by Stan Lee. Perfect signature placement. And look, I've got a COA and like information about when it was signed by Stan and everything, but like that's a pretty huge book to have in a red label, and I'm not afraid of that.
That's awesome,
and I love that.
That's very cool. So. Oh man, that's awesome. That's very cool. So I'm ask you here, what preferred grading companies? CGCS, CBCS, PGX, EGS.
Yeah, I mean CBC. I mean, look, CGC,
or just whatever. Some people just don't care. Yeah,
CGC is my preferred grading company. I've done more business with CGC over the course of the last 5 or 6 years than any other grading company. Especially the last 2 to 3 years, I would say, than any other grading company. Like, but I still use CBCS every once in a while, as some of those examples show. I have DGC. DGC. I love George's DGC custom label operations.
I'm still waiting for him to just make a label that says, "Yeah, this book's an 11.5."
Yeah, like I literally have no experience with PGX, so I can't speak to it. I have not ever had a single book graded by them. I've never bought a book on the market third party that just happened to be graded by them. So I literally have zero experience, so I can't say anything bad or positive about it. You know what I mean? I just can't say. I can't speak to something I have no experience with. I have no experience with EGS or any of these newer guys or some of these other like European whatever services that I've seen. You see some books in some weird slabs every once in a while that you don't recognize. But CGC is the company that I have the most experience with. CBCS is the company I have the second most experience with, and that's it. That's the only experience I have is those two companies. I do think that CBCS has done a good job of improving their turnaround time and their reputation.
Yeah, they're down to 5 weeks now.
Yeah. And I don't think that's necessarily any negative on CGC or anything like that, but but I do think that is a pretty positive sign for them and for anybody who uses them. I know that they're having some sort of sale right now, and I looked at it and I was like, you know what, I might send some stuff in, like 20% off.
20% off, and they give you a 4-week turnaround time. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. So I might take them up on that, like for some red labels, maybe, because I've got a bunch of. I think I might have like 45, signed comic books that are not slabbed, right? Like raw, that are books that have been signed, either in front of me at signings or cons, or acquired, already signed or whatever with a COA from Midtown or whomever, right? And I'm not saying all those books are slab worthy, but every once in a while, I will send in a raw book that's already been signed to CBCS for red label verification, because they're the only ones that offer it, that have any marketplace like impact. I'm not going to give a book like that to another company, because there's no marketplace track record for it. So
exactly. I'm going to switch over here to a little bit of news.
All right.
So Disney Plus.
Okay.
Do you have Disney Plus? Have you?
I do.
Heard of Disney Plus? Okay, you do.
I both heard of and have Disney Plus.
What do you think? Mandalorian's pretty good.
I love it. I've seen every episode like 3 times. So,
3 times.
Yeah,
that's quite
at least. So I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Shout out to CBCS.
I'm a big fan of Dave Filoni and like what his body of work between Star Wars Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. So I think Mandalorian has that kind of authenticity to it, but it also has Jon Favreau involved, and his writing. I think it's an enjoyable show. I am finding a bit of like a reason to need Disney Plus now, besides rewatching Mandalorian over and over again, or rewatching the Star Wars movies and content I've already paid for separately that I have on Blu-ray. You know what I mean? Like I already have all that stuff. So I guess streaming it to, straight to your PlayStation or to your iPad or to your iPhone or whatever you want to do is convenient. But I'm lucky because I got some sort of like upfront deal for like 40% off. Like if you booked 3 years of Disney Plus in advance during a D23 or whatever. So I'm already good. Like I'm good to go with Disney Plus for the next few years, even if right now it kind of feels like a quiet period as far as like new content exclusives. That's gonna all ramp up like crazy in the next couple of years. So. So I don't know. Was there a question in there, or
no? Just trying to gauge your opinion on Mandalore, but that's cool. So Marvel movies in general, obviously, there's a lot of excitement coming around with the new phase. Getting the X-Men back together. Sounds like it's going to be awesome. ShangChi. Are you excited for a ShangChi movie?
I'm excited for it in the spirit of it's cool to see like different kinds of movies and movie tropes and genres being introduced and played with in the MCU. Because I don't think we've seen like a true like martial arts kung fu style whether I don't know what the ultimate product is going to be like. Like we'll reserve judgment for when the movie comes out or whatever. But like there hasn't been a movie like that, right? As far as the action, so out of that curiosity factor, I'm excited. I'm not excited from the standpoint of I've been reading like Shang-Chi my whole life and like I know all about the lore and that character and whatnot. I don't know a ton about it. It's not something I've really dove into over the course of being a comic book reader or collector. Something I'd like to know a little bit more about, but
Right. The reason I asked, see if I can make this happen here.
Share a screen thing.
Yeah, I share a screen here. Let's see. Share screen. I want this one. Hopefully my mouse doesn't die. There we go. So, ShangChi director hints at a big change in the film's villain, the Mandarin. So, sounds like the Mandarin's coming to ShangChi. I think I heard that rumor a while ago, but obviously, to me, this is kind of like the first few confirmations that I've seen that the Mandarin is coming back to the MCU.
Honestly, I don't. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be honest, because I don't follow. If Marvel announces it, I'm aware of it. But if it's being talked about, like from a speculation kind of rumor mill kind of like level, where it's like unconfirmed reports and whatnot, I don't do a good job of like staying on top of every single like rumor out there, if that makes any sense. So I don't know. Like, I haven't even. This is not an article I've read or I'm aware of, so I don't know. I don't have an opinion necessarily.
Yeah, and the very little that I do know about Marvel, I know even less about Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Although he's supposed to be a super badass kung fu guy, which is still awesome.
Yeah.
But even
another thing I still haven't seen, and this applies to a comic book and a character that I'm a big fan of, is the Swamp Thing show on DC Universe. Have you guys seen that? So here are my House of Secrets 92, and I know that got prematurely canceled, but it's been on my list. I need to catch up on that, and I also need to see the second season of Titans. I haven't seen.
Titans was amazing.
It was good, because I haven't seen a lot of the newer seasons of stuff that have come out in like the last 6 months. Like, there's just so much stuff to like watch on all these streaming services. Like, I get behind pretty easily on a lot of things.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking, DC and their cool streaming service, it seems like DC's biggest competitor is themselves. I don't understand it. In terms of like they want to make a Warner Brothers streaming service.
Yeah. HBO Max. They are making it's called
they want to fold in some of that comic book content. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could see it all I could see it all folding into like one thing at some point, but I really don't know.
But I have a DC streaming app. Like, I don't need anything else.
Right, but apparently they're not going to put whatever Green Lantern show they're developing on the DC app. They're going to put it on the HBO. They're going to put it on the HBO Max app. So,
dude, it needs to be. There's no consistency. It's like I said, they're their biggest competitor. DC's biggest competitor is themselves. I don't understand it. But,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think everybody's biggest competitor is I feel like DC's biggest competitor is the bazillion other places or apps I could spend my money on every month. Like, it's like everybody's competitor. Like, it's a new Wild West.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I pay for like 10 different subscription services or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, so like from that standpoint, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible to make things easier. I think they're only going to get more complex.
Right. I mean, there's just so much content out there now. Hulu, Netflix, and now Disney Plus is blowing up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Tom Holland in the Venom 2 movie, are you excited? You said you're a big Spider-Man.
I mean, maybe. Is that true? Like, because I don't know.
I think it's in talks at this point. It's still very early, but I think it would be cool. The Spider-Man movies that I seen when it was still Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I thought that was the first time I ever heard of Venom was in that movie.
Right.
I was really young, so I mean, I was like, cool, a Spider-Man and an evil Spider-Man, like that's awesome. Yeah. But now I know more about the character, and seen the Venom movie. Like, you can't do Venom, honestly. You can't do Venom right without.
It's interesting because when Marvel and Sony essentially said that we have no deal, and then Sony said, Spider-Man's back in, out of the MCU,
Sonyverse,
all that stuff, people were freaking out. I partially was looking forward to that in a
Okay.
way, because I was like, okay, then finally we'll get our Spider-Man Carnage Venom verse happening on the big screen, right? Now they may be going ahead and doing that anyway, and then still allowing him to be in the MCU, which is the best of both worlds. So if that is true in theory, I'm excited. I didn't know if it was true yet or not, or whatever. Which we'll see.
I think it's still in the early stages of talks at this point, but
yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that, because I'd like having my Spider-Man in my Avengers movie, and then also having a Venom Spider-Man Carnage. I mean, that's a nerdgasm right there. I would love that. I love both. Give me both.
Yeah, I mean, give me both. I mean, I don't collect a whole lot of Marvel comics, but I still enjoy seeing Marvel movies with my friends.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say I collect more Marvel than anything else. I mean, most of my DC collecting is tied into Batman and to a smaller degree Superman.
Sure.
So those are their two biggest, most well-known, oldest, golden age characters, right? So that's kind of my focus. With a little bit of Swamp Thing in there, you know what I mean? I think Swamp Thing for me is the, I don't know, it's the...
Are you a Constantine fan by any chance?
Yeah, I like Constantine. I don't have a ton of books, but he's a character I enjoy. Some of that darker DC stuff is kind of where it's more of my jam than the, like, I don't know, the just the wider Justice League, level characters beyond Batman and Superman. I haven't gotten as much into. Like, I'm not deeply well versed in Green Lantern books and comics. I'm not, same thing with Green Arrow, etc. So I have some catching up to do. I have some knowledge gaps, if you will, in my collecting and reading.
So now we'll do. We got a few minutes left here of the show. I try to keep them about an hour. So.
Yeah, that's about as long as anybody's willing to watch on replay.
Yeah, right. So for the next 5 minutes, we'll do a lightning round. Okay. Questions for Comic Book NYC. And we'll start off. Comic Books NYC. Sorry about that. Because you have more than one book.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll go with Comics on the Mind first. What about Vertigo? Got any Vertigo books?
Yeah, I like Vertigo. I mean, I'm a big fan of The Why the Last Man. I mean, Brian K. Vaughan.
That was a great book.
Yeah, I mean, Brian K. Vaughan is one of my favorite overall, like his whole body of work. Runaways, Why the Last Man, Saga. I enjoy pretty much all of his work. Paper Girls. Pretty much have read and have enjoyed almost all of his work. I would say there's an exception in there. But
next question comes. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut
big
you
fan
off.
of his.
Cool. Next question comes from the comic book collector. Have you been to the Pop Fun to Plays shop in Manhattan?
I don't think so. I'm not aware of what that is.
I'm not sure what that is. I got one for you. Is there a shop somewhere in New York City that is a hidden gem that if anyone's ever in the city?
Yeah, I mean, and this is something I covered on my channel before, but the Koch Comics warehouse in Brooklyn in Sunset Park. It's basically in this
Koch Comics warehouse.
Koch Comics warehouse. It's in this gigantic warehouse that you wouldn't expect to be like a comics and collectibles warehouse or store or whatever, with like millions of comic books and trades and just random things. And it's not even a store that has open hours Monday through Friday. Like, they're open only on weekends to the public nowadays. If you want to go Monday through Friday, you have to contact them either through calling them up, or I believe they have an email on their website or something. But you have to reach out to them and set up an actual appointment so they can actually open up the warehouse for you to go look through. Whatever.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's not it's not going to be like a comic book store in there. It's literally a gigantic warehouse that's overflowing with comic books and comic related stuff.
Well, don't even tempt me, man.
So it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun time.
Comics on the Mind again. Do you collect anything outside of comics?
I mean, if original comic book art counts, I collect a lot. I collect that. I've been collecting that for a few years. But but that's kind of related to comic books, so it's almost
anything outside of comic book, anything
outside of comic
coins, stamps, cars.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I collected basketball, baseball, football, hockey cards, and whatnot. But like, I don't do that anymore. Obviously, like, I don't really, outside of comic books and comic book art, original art, I don't really collect anything else these days. That's what I collect. I have like a modest game collection, I guess, but nothing like graded, nothing vintage, nothing that's going to sell on the aftermarket.
Just cool stuff to own.
Just a few games here and there, or whatnot. But not really a collection. More of just like a, to play or whatever. But yeah.
Dan Piercy wants to know if you are a big Incredible Hulk fan.
I am not a big Incredible Hulk fan. Like that's to say I'm not a Incredible Hulk hater or anything. You know what I mean? But like when I look at the Marvel universe of characters, Hulk for me is not in my top 5.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting. I've heard that before, but he's more loved than not loved, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I mean, he would be in my top 10, you know what I mean? But he wouldn't be in my top 5. So he would probably be somewhere in the middle of that list without me having, like, I never sat down and went like, this is my top 10 Marvel Universe character list and what I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've never done that exercise. If I did do that exercise, a lot of the Spider-Man related characters would take those top positions. Spider-Man / Peter Parker, Eddie Brock / Venom, Cletus Cassidy / Carnage, right? A lot of those would be towards my top 5, I would say. And then I would go next level down to things like Thor, Iron Man, and other characters I'm more into than Hulk. But I like Hulk,
JB,
satisfying. Hey, what's up, JB?
Budget collecting coming in the midnight hour. And finally, I feel like the most important question is who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I don't even know who's playing in the Super Bowl.
Nobody yet. It's playoffs. We just had the Bills got beat by the Texans this afternoon. Patriots are playing now.
So the Bills. So I was born in Buffalo on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh.
In 1984, January 22nd, 1984. Raiders beat the Washington Redskins, and I was born literally in Buffalo, New York. And then, my dad's not into sports or anything like that, but he took that as like a sign, and he became like a casual Bills supporter or Bills fan because I was born in Buffalo, New York, Buffalo Bills on Super Bowl Sunday, and then they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Straight.
4 straight. And I was like,
that's awesome.
And I was like 6 years old when they started that run of like losing 4 straight Super Bowls in a row. Was that like 1990, 91, 92,
yeah, something
93?
Like that, yeah.
Right. And I was born in 84, so I kind of felt like I like cursed the Buffalo Bills or something like that. I felt like, because I was a kid, and I was like, I kind of like took it hard that they kept.
And that's the last time they won a playoff game was last year they went to the Super Bowl. So it's been how long now? 20 years. Yeah. And the streak continues today. Yeah, they lost today.
Well, sorry to hear that. I mean, I don't even know what other teams are left over, so I don't even know how to give you a Super Bowl.
Titans are actually beating the Patriots by 1 at halftime, 14-13.
Oh, really?
Vikings, Saints tomorrow, and Seahawks and Eagles tomorrow.
Well, speaking of beating the Patriots, I mean, the Giants have been the team that I've been like, I guess, have actually rooted for, have been a fan of. You know what I mean? The Buffalo thing is kind of a little too convenient. Like, I have to be a fan of them? No. The Giants, so when they, every time that they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl was a pretty exhilarating, like, Super Bowl for me. So
yeah, I think that was everybody's favorite moment, Super Bowl moments when the Patriots
maybe.
That's too funny. Thanks everyone for hanging out.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Comic Books NYC. Go ahead and shout out your social media one more time.
I didn't show as many books, but I felt like the conversation was flowing and everything.
Yeah, I mean? It's totally not a problem.
I brought more books to like around me to show than like actually even was able to get to showing based on how quickly the conversation was moving. So I appreciate it. It was fun.
No problem. Social media one more time.
Yeah, I'm at at Comic Books NYC, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, comicbooksnyc@gmail.com. DM me on Instagram, put me up on, shoot me an email, whatever you need to do. I'm around. Love connecting with other members of the community. I don't think you and I had even talked before when you hit me up, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Because
no, man, we haven't. We have never said 2 words to each other.
I don't
like
think so.
last
Maybe
week.
besides, I think I showed up to this show before, like when Bake was on it.
Yeah.
Maybe when
Bake was on it. Shout out to Bake.
D-Rock was on it at some point. So you've had my friends on that I'm tight with. So I'm like, yeah, of course I'll give it a shot. So I appreciate it, man. It's fun. It's fun to be on. Yeah, and just sort of free for all. So
that's kind of what I like doing, keeping it smooth, having fun, chilling. It's pretty relaxed environment. There's no schedule. We get to whatever we get to.
Yeah, and that's generally my philosophy on doing YouTube content in general. I can't make it my number one priority. I have a career, I have a life, I have a job, I have bills. I just like everybody else. Some people have jobs, taking their time. Other people have families. Some people have both. There's all sorts of stuff going on in people's lives. So I look at it just kind of as like an outlet for me to connect with people who have similar interests, hobbies, whatnot, have some cool conversations, meet some cool people. But I'm never going to take my channel and turn it into the next big thing. That's not really.
Is there anything cool coming up that we should be on the lookout for? You got any cool trips planned? Going to stores?
Well, this is the first thing I've done in the community in 2020. So congratulations. Snagging the big whale, Comic Books NYC. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'm doing a show on. So I do a show. I partner with JP Budget Collecting. He's in the chat. I do a show called Gotham City Chronicles. We alternate between my channel and JP's channel. There's no set schedule. We'll have guests and stuff like that. But the point is, we cover a different Batman story every time. We've done 10 episodes, so we've covered a lot of great Batman stories. The 11th episode is going to be on Monday, January 13th.
Mark your calendars.
9 p.m. Eastern on my channel. It'll be me, JP's Budget Collecting, Big Will Comics, and I believe Bear Island Comics might also join us.
Bear Island's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's been on before. He's one of our buds. Definitely looking forward to hanging out with him at C2E2 also. So that's the next planned thing I have. I'm also working on possibly either on the January 20th or January 27th for the second episode of a show I do called Original Art Hour. The first episode debuted on December 30th. I had J Hood Creative on my channel.
I did see that. Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah. So
he's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. And basically the concept of that show is to get people on that are into the artwork side of the hobby, whether it's actual published pages or getting commissions done or sketch covers or remarks, that kind of stuff. So collectors who have an interest in the artwork or the original art side of the comic book collecting hobby are I'm trying to get them to showcase some of their collection on the art side on that show. So there's going to be no set schedule or anything like that, but I'm going to slowly start confirming more guests and having more people on to do that show. So there has been one episode, but there will be more down the line. And those are the only 2 big things that I know.
Still something.
So yeah, it's still something. I don't like to have too much on my YouTube plate, at any given time, because then it almost feels like you got to do too much work to prepare or whatever. I like just a couple things at a time. That's kind of the way I go about it, or the pace I go. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have to link up again, maybe next year, January 2021.
Yeah. 2021.
See if you got some your number one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book. Yep.
Well, I hope so. That would be, if the year ends and I have that book in my collection, I may have gotten rid of a bunch of other books in my collection.
There's be nothing in the back. It's all gone.
But I want to keep some of my other bigger books too.
Sure.
So it should be interesting. So it
Very awesome.
feels good to have a very focused goal like that, as opposed to, because every other time I've done any kind of list or whatever, I just have not been able to stick to it, and like I've gone so off the beaten path of where I laid out the path that it would have been better to just not have a path for me. So, one key goal for a
one
whole
book
year,
at a time. Yeah.
I can try. I think I can try and make that happen.
Awesome. Well, perfect timing. A little over an hour, but that's okay. No problem. You heard it here. He's looking for a Ninja Turtles #1. Hopefully he gets it.
Hey, if I can't find a first print at the grade and at the condition and price that I'm looking for, and I can't make a deal work, I'm willing to look at a second print or something. You know what I mean? I just know that is a book that I do want in my collection. I want to have the entire original Eastman Laird TMNT run in my collection, and there's several books in that run that I don't have, so including #1, which is the hardest book to get. So.
Well, good luck to you, sir. Hopefully you get that book and the rest of your 2020 goes all right.
Thanks, man.
We'll be in touch. I want to thank everyone for chat for hanging out with us tonight. It was a blast. And
thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you. I have to remember to hit the end button.